What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I'm going to be going over the main changes that I noticed between the beta build and the launch build of the game for Blackout. First up, gotta give a big thank you and shout out to Activision for flying me out last week to LA so I could get my hands on this early. There were a few other YouTubers there, we had a big capture event, and we were able to play for about 20 hours or so. So we played quite a bit of Blackout, and I noticed a bunch of changes that have been made since the beta build of the game. Keep in mind, this list isn't going to be a full comprehensive list of every little thing that changed. It's just the main things I noticed through my playtime. Now, just a quick note about the gameplay here. I was playing with the God Squad. We had E. coli Espresso, Hollow Point, as well as Ink Slasher, and we dominated during this event. We actually won like 6 out of 9 games that we played for squads in Blackout, and we were a really solid team, so I gotta give a shout out to those guys. But let's hop into the first thing I have on my list here. This is one of the biggest things I noticed and one of the biggest problems I had with the beta, and I'm glad they fixed it. This is the angle at which you're able to pick up loot. In the beta build of the game, you had to be looking pretty much straight down towards the loot. Maybe not straight down, but you had to be looking at a downwards angle towards the loot if you wanted to pick it up. In the launch build of the game, you can be looking upwards actually. You can be looking up towards the sky to a certain extent and still pick up the loot that's underneath your feet. This is awesome in my opinion because when you're going around looting, you can keep your sights up, you can keep your gun up, and you can pay attention to what's going on in front of you while also still getting the loot that you want. This brings us to the next change, and this also has to do with looting. Keep in mind this is something that wasn't available in the build that we played, but it has been confirmed to be coming into the game within the day 1 update. This is the option to switch over so that you can tap square to pick up items, on PS4 at least. You can tap the pickup button instead of holding it for console. Now initially, Vonderhaar was against doing this because he feels it will interfere with reloading in some situations. If you try to reload your gun while you're standing on top of loot, it may prioritize picking that loot up if you tap square, and if you're in the middle of a fight, that could be really annoying. But also, for anybody that played both the console build and the PC build of the game during the beta, the PC build was far superior when it comes to looting, mainly because you could pick things up literally instantly. If you had 3 items that were really close to each other, it was just like bang, 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 you get all 3 items, whereas with console, you had to hold to pick up the first thing, then hold to pick up the second thing, and then hold to pick up the third thing. And I found that really annoying and unnecessary, so now we have the option within the menus. Keep in mind this is something you have to manually enable within your options. You can make it so you can tap to pick up items rather than hold. Just keep in mind, if you are planning on reloading your gun, make sure you're not standing on top of any loot, because it might prioritize picking that loot up. Moving on to the next thing on my list here, and this is the first thing that I noticed right away, and at first I thought it was just the monitors that we were using at this event. I thought maybe they just had some different settings on them or something, but when I got home and I compared it to the beta footage, it turns out this is the case. The colors are much more vibrant now than they were in the beta build of the game. You especially notice this when you're initially dropping into the game. I'll actually play a little bit of side-by-side clip here. The first clip is me dropping in during the beta build of the game. You can see it's fairly washed out. There's not a lot of like really vibrant green colors to it. The water is also not like a really rich blue color by any means. Now have a look at dropping in the full build of the game. Definitely a very noticeable difference, and I really like this as well because in the beta it did feel fairly washed out. It felt like we were in a desert all the time. Even when we were in treed areas, it kind of felt like a desert-ish area, and now it feels like there's much more of a distinction between the treed areas and the actual desert areas near Turbine. Moving on to the next thing on my list, this is something you might have noticed already while watching the gameplay. On the top right, you can see a broom with a little counter next to it where your kills and stuff are. This is a new UI element. I believe it only appears in squads. I could be mistaken. Maybe it's going to show up in solos. We didn't really play any solos throughout this event. But what this element is this is the number of cleanups you get in a game. Now, a cleanup will count for you anytime you take somebody completely out of the game. So if you down an enemy player, but you don't finish them off, it doesn't count as a cleanup. Even if your teammate finishes that guy off, you don't get a cleanup for it, but you will still get a kill for it, of course. So anytime you take somebody completely out of the game and you eliminate them, so this will count if somebody else downs a player and you finish them off, you'll get a cleanup for that, even though you won't get a kill for that. Or if you happen to be killing the last person in the squad and they just instantly down because they don't go into a bleed out state if they're the last player alive on their squad. Any of those situations where you take somebody completely out of the match, you will end up with a cleanup added to the top right there. Now personally, I don't really understand the significance of displaying cleanups because they don't count for merits or anything at the end of the game. They don't seem to count in any other capacity. It's still kills that matter. But for anybody who was confused by that little broom up there, that's what that means. Next up, probably one of my favorite changes that's made since the beta, and this is something they confirmed that they'd be making, but you can actually see it within the gameplay. This is an armor health bar. So you can see on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you can see for both you as well as your teammates how much health your armor has left. So after a fight, if somebody shoots your armor, that health bar that goes above your normal health bar, that will start depleting. And this just allows you to keep an eye on your armor and how well it's doing when it comes to its condition. And if you happen to come across another piece of armor that's equal in tier, but you're not too sure which one is hurt more, you can now check that out and you can make the right decisions when it comes to that. And this is huge. I especially like the fact that I can see whether or not teammates have armor equipped. It won't tell you what tier of armor they have, but it will at least tell you whether or not they have armor and if their armor is hurt. So if you happen to find some armor and you notice your teammate either doesn't have armor or his armor's hurt really bad, you can of course let them know that you've got that armor there for them and they can come loot it. Moving on to the next change, this is the addition of missions within game, and this is how you unlock at least the base specialist skins for Blackout. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get access to every single one of these, so I can't let you know all of the challenges yet, but of course, there will be videos on this. I will also be doing some guides to help you complete some of those slightly more difficult ones out there. But as you're going through the world, you'll eventually find these items. So right here, for instance, we have the Burned Doll. This is something that you can pick up, and with this, it gives you character missions. For this one, this is what you need to unlock the Firebreak skin within Blackout. And once you unlock it, you have it permanently. It's on your account and you can use it whenever. But with this one, you have to confirm, kill, or clean up a down player with fire. So most likely using a Molotov, that would probably be the easiest way to do this. If you finish them off with fire, you complete the first stage of this mission. And the second stage is you have to finish the match with the Burned Doll in your inventory. So it does take up an inventory slot when you pick one of these items up for a mission. And I'll be honest, at this point, I'm a little bit unclear about the wording of that. I don't know if that means you have to survive right to the end of the match, so you have to actually get the victory, or if you die at any point after completing the first stage, as long as that item's still in your inventory, you will complete it. I kind of hope that's the case, so it's a little bit easier at least. In either case, these are the style of missions that you have to complete in order to get the skins. And I really like this because you have to actually actively keep an eye out for these various items. Each item will relate in some way to the specialist. For instance, for Woods, I believe, there's a bandana that you have to find. I believe, at least. I think I saw somebody else get that item. There's also like poker chips, for instance. There's various different items that you find throughout the match, and they give you these unique missions, and then you have to try and complete them. And of course, if you fail it, you're going to have to find that item again in a different match and try again. So that's a really big addition, and that's how you unlock your specialist character skins. Now let's move on to the next one, and this one is something that I think we all saw coming, but they didn't have this implemented in the beta build of the game. This is emotes, gestures, sprays, as well as in-game callouts. Now for emotes and gestures, at least on console, what you do is you press right on the D-pad and it will open up the menu where you can select which gesture or spray or emote that you want to do. Of course, at the beginning of the game, we've got very, very basic ones, like a fist bump, for instance, and a couple little dances and a thumbs up. There's also a few sprays that we have access to, so you can spray a wall or spray the ground below you with your own unique image, although I'm not too sure if we'll be able to use custom emblems for this. I feel like that could get out of hand, but it seems like there's opportunity for doing something like that, which would be kind of cool. But in addition to these emotes and gestures and stuff, we also have callouts, and what this is instead of right on the D-pad, you hit left on the D-pad, and that opens up a menu where you can like ask for ammo, you can say thank you. Basically all the simple phrases that you would need to somewhat communicate with a team that doesn't have a mic, or if you don't have a mic, you can kind of communicate with them and say like I need ammo or I need health or something along those lines. And it's kind of cool with this one because there are actually voiceover lines when you use this. I wonder if there's going to be unique ones for each specialist. I kind of feel that's going to be the case, but unfortunately I didn't have access to everything to be able to test that in the build that we played.
You'll never get on this level.
Moving on to the 8th thing I have on my list here, this is an apparent nerf to level 3 armor. Now I don't have the exact numbers on this by any means, but I found throughout the game when I ran into people that were using level 3 armor, it felt very obvious that that armor wasn't nearly as powerful as it was in the beta build of the game, even towards the end of the beta build of the game. To me, it really felt like it was essentially level 2 armor with head protection. So I was actually winning gunfights against people that had level 3 armor when I only had level 1 armor, or I didn't have any armor at all, assuming I had the jump on them. And this felt a lot better than in the beta, because in the beta, even sneaking up behind somebody that had level 3 armor, if I didn't have any armor on, that was an extremely scary fight to take, because they would often have time to turn around and shoot back at me. Even if I was really accurate and I was hitting all my shots, their total health was just so much higher than mine. I didn't have this same experience against level 3 users in the build that we played last week. So again, I don't know the exact numbers, I don't know exactly what changed, but that's what it felt like to me. Level 3 armor didn't feel nearly as scary as it was in the beta. Next up, another thing that I really like for duos and quads is after the match, you get an after-match report that shows all of the stats for your whole team. So you can see how many kills each player got, you can see the longest kill that each player got, and the total damage that they dealt throughout the game. And I think this is an excellent addition. Now you don't have to go around asking everybody on your team like, oh, how many kills did you get? And then you have to try and add it up to see how many total kills you got as a squad. You can see this for your entire team in the after-action report, and I think this is an awesome, awesome addition. And this brings us to the final thing I have on my list. This is the frequency at which snipers seem to spawn within the world. In the beta build of the game, basically anytime I made it towards a top 10 situation, I would have had a few opportunities to pick up sniper rifles, whether that be on people that I've killed or just laying around on the ground. Sniper rifles were relatively abundant, and I actually remember in most of the quad games that we played, all 4 players on the team would have a sniper rifle at the end of the game throughout the beta. This was not the case for the final build of the game. Sniper rifles were much more rare and highly sought after. And if you were playing quads, you really had to decide which person in the quad would get that sniper rifle, like who is the best sniper and who gets it, if you even managed to find a sniper rifle throughout the game. There were actually quite a few games where our quad won the game, but we didn't come across a single sniper rifle throughout the entire match. And I do feel this is a step in the right direction to an extent. Maybe they took it a little bit too far. I like the fact that there aren't sniper rifles all over the place and it's really easy to find them because they're extremely powerful in Blackout. But at the same time, I feel like they should be something that you can reasonably find within a match. So I think this is something we need some more gameplay time with. Maybe we'll learn the loot spawns better. Maybe there are certain loot spawns that have a higher percentage of spawning a sniper rifle than other loot areas. I'm not too sure how that's all going to work out, but I did want to let you guys know that this was a very obvious change. Sniper rifles were much more rare than they were in the beta build of the game. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on the top 10 things that I noticed that changed between the beta build and the launch build of the game for Blackout. I'd love to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about these changes? Do you really like them overall? Are there any that you dislike? And are there any other ones that you're hoping for the final build? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.